The coffee splashes across Captain Hawkins' uniform like blood on snow. The cafeteria freezes. All eyes lock on the supply clerk. Sarah Mitchell, 34, invisible, forgettable. Her coveralls hang loose, stained and faded. She drops to her knees, whispering, "I'm sorry, sir." Hawkins sneers. "Maybe stick to counting boxes, sweetheart." Laughter erupts. A private points. "Nice Band-Aid." Beige fabric wraps her arm. "What happened? Paper cut?" More laughter, but someone trained would notice. The way her breathing stays steady, the way her jaw tightens, how her eyes scan the room like she's measuring exits, threats, options. They don't see it yet, but something dangerous just woke up. She reaches for napkins with movements that are economical, precise. As her sleeve rides up, the edge of something dark becomes visible beneath the patch. Not a shadow, not a bruise, but something deliberate, something permanent. "Sorry, Captain," she whispers, her voice carrying a weight that momentarily silences the closest observers. Her fingers curl in a specific pattern as she cleans, emotion that speaks of muscle memory trained through repetition. The stance she adopts while kneeling isn't one of submission but of readiness, every joint positioned for explosive movement if needed. But the cafeteria crowd sees only what they expect to see. A simple woman, a nobody, cleaning up her mess while her betters laugh. They don't recognize the hunter's stillness in her posture. They don't see the way her eyes catalog every exit, every potential weapon, every threat level in the room. They see a supply clerk with shaking hands and assume it's fear. They never consider nerve damage. They never imagine that hands, which once held a rifle steady enough to eliminate targets at 800 meters, might shake for reasons that have nothing to do with being afraid. If you were humiliated for who you are, would you reveal your true identity or stay silent? Let us know where you're watching from. The question hangs in the air like smoke from a distant battlefield, waiting for answers that might never come. Sarah Mitchell arrives at Fort Braxton every morning at 0500 hours, 2 full hours before her required start time. The parking lot sits empty except for the night watch, their figures ghost-like in the pre-dawn darkness. She parks in the furthest spot from the building, not from humility but from habit. Always leave yourself an exit route, always assume you might need to leave quickly. Her logistics office reflects a mind trained in precision, supply requests processed with 99.9% accuracy. Inventory systems that run like Swiss timepieces. But she speaks only when spoken to, moves through the base like a shadow that apologizes for casting darkness. She eats alone in corners of the cafeteria where sightlines allow her to monitor all approaches. Even in the crushing heat of summer, she wears long sleeves. Always long sleeves. The other workers joke about it, creating theories. Religious modesty, germophobia, scars from a car accident. They never guess the truth, because the truth lives in a world they've never entered. 5 years ago, the location remains classified even now, somewhere in the dust and death of the Middle East. Call sign Ghost Wolf moved through enemy territory like smoke through fingers. The only female operative in the Grey Wolf unit, a distinction that meant nothing when bullets started flying. 47 confirmed operations, 100% success rate, numbers that tell a story of competence so complete it borders on the supernatural. Deep reconnaissance specialist, elimination expert, intelligence gatherer. Words that sanitized what really happened in those dark corners of the world where America's enemies thought themselves safe. Then came Kandahar province. The mission parameters remain sealed, but the outcome echoes through her life like a bell that never stops ringing. Shrapnel from an IED meant for her entire unit found only her. Her left arm became a canvas of torn muscle and severed nerves. She saved them all, carrying wounded operators to safety while her own blood painted the desert sand. But the injury stole something precious. Nerve damage made her hands unreliable. A sniper who cannot hold a rifle steady is like a bird with clipped wings. The medical discharge felt like a death sentence, delivered in triplicate. They offered desk jobs in Pentagon offices, consultant positions with defense contractors, speaking tours to inspire the next generation. She chose Fort Braxton's logistics department instead, close enough to military life to breathe its air, far enough from operations to avoid the constant reminder of what she'd lost. The patch on her arm covers more than scars. Beneath it lies the Grey Wolf unit tattoo, intricate and beautiful in its lethality, but more than that, it hides the names. Every operator who didn't make it home wears their memorial on her skin. She carries the dead like a rosary of remembrance, each name a prayer she can never stop saying. This is her penance. This is her choice. To live invisible among those she once protected, to serve in shadows where no one knows her name. The punishment isn't anonymity. The punishment is proximity, being so close to what she was while pretending to be nothing at all. Small details escape notice in the daily routine of base life. How she maintains perfect tactical awareness of every room's exits without seeming to look, the way she categorizes each person by threat level, an instinct so ingrained it operates below conscious thought. Sometimes helicopters pass overhead, and her 1,000-yard stare returns, seeing landscapes that exist only in memory and nightmare. Her hands shake slightly when she writes, nerve damage creating a tremor that marks her as broken to those who don't understand. They see weakness where warriors would recognize sacrifice. They see a nobody where legends would whisper, "Ghost Wolf," with reverence. Master Sergeant Rodriguez notices things others miss. 3 tours in Vietnam taught him to recognize the signs of a warrior living in sheep's clothing. He watches her calm a panicking private during a supply crisis, her voice carrying command despite barely rising above a whisper. That tone, that specific modulation of authority wrapped in compassion, he's heard it before in rice paddies and jungle clearings, where natural leaders emerged from chaos. The first week after the coffee incident establishes a new routine in Sarah's carefully controlled existence. Captain Hawkins assigns her as official coffee runner for all command meetings. A petty degradation designed to reinforce her place in the base hierarchy. She complies without complaint, arriving early to prepare the conference room, ensuring each cup meets its recipient's exact preferences. Her silence frustrates Hawkins more than protest ever could. He wants pushback, resistance, something to justify his continued mockery. Instead, she gives him perfect service delivered with downcast eyes. What Hawkins doesn't understand is that his behavior stems from wounds deeper than any shrapnel could inflict. 2 years ago, he applied for Grey Wolf selection. The elite unit represented everything he believed about military excellence. Physical prowess, tactical brilliance, the sharp edge of American warfare. The rejection letter arrived with surgical precision, informing him he possessed all necessary skills, but lacked the indefinable quality they sought. Heart, they called it. As if his dedication meant nothing. His career since then built itself on traditional metrics. Perfect PT scores, regulations memorized like scripture, appearance maintained to recruiting poster standards. But his wife saw through the facade. She left him 6 months ago for a special forces operator, a man who radiated the quiet confidence Hawkins could only imitate. Now he sees Sarah's quietness as weakness, projects his failures onto her bent shoulders. Every cup of coffee she delivers represents his own inadequacy reflected back at him. The second week brings announcement of the annual combat readiness demonstration. General Thompson himself will attend, evaluating the base's preparedness through a series of exercises. Hawkins volunteers Sarah for the logistics demonstration, but his motivation runs deeper than simple mockery. He wants to prove that conventional soldiers, those who follow rules and maintain standards, are superior to the glory hounds of special operations. Sarah becomes his unwitting prop in a performance designed to vindicate his entire worldview. Master Sergeant Rodriguez begins noticing patterns others miss. He watches Sarah in the base chapel at 0300 hours, not praying but conducting what appears to be a silent conversation with the memorial wall. Her lips move in a cadence he recognizes, the ritual of reporting to the dead, names spoken into darkness, updates on lives that continue because of sacrifices made. He starts asking questions through the veteran network, careful inquiries that piece together fragments of legend. A female Grey Wolf operative, the whispers say, someone who moved through darkness like death itself until darkness finally caught up. The details remain classified, but the outline emerges like a photograph developing in solution. Rodriguez tries warning Hawkins during a chance encounter at the motor pool. "You don't know who you're pushing," he says, choosing words carefully. Hawkins dismisses him with a wave. Just another broken vet protecting another. This base has too many people living in the past. Sarah's supply requests tell their own story to those who know how to read between the lines. Specific medical supplies ordered in quantities that exceed base requirements. Monthly packages sent to addresses that don't appear in any military database. Hawkins notices the discrepancies during his campaign to find more ammunition for mockery. He assumes theft. Perhaps a black market operation run by someone desperate for extra income. The truth would break his understanding of service. Each package goes to families of fallen Grey Wolf operators, medical supplies for children whose fathers never came home, widows' groceries supplemented by someone who understands the gap between death benefits and actual need. She supports 12 families from her logistics coordinator's salary, living on base minimums to ensure others have more. This is her interpretation of leave no one behind, extended beyond the battlefield into the lifetime that follows. The rising tension creates ripples throughout Fort Braxton. Younger soldiers follow Hawkins' lead, creating a culture of casual cruelty directed at support staff, but the older veterans watch with growing unease. They recognize something in Sarah that transcends rank or position, a quality that makes them unconsciously straighten when she passes. The base divides into camps without realizing it, those who see only surface appearances, and those who've learned that still waters often hide the deepest currents. Rodriguez continues his research, each discovered fragment adding weight to his growing certainty. The female Grey Wolf legend includes operational details that seem impossible. A sniper who could remain motionless for 72 hours. An operative who infiltrated positions others deemed impenetrable. Someone who carried wounded teammates distances that defy human endurance. The stories sound like mythology, until he correlates dates and locations with Sarah's service record gaps. Have you ever witnessed someone being underestimated because of their appearance? Share your story below. The question resonates through the narrative like a tuning fork, striking chords in every person who's ever been dismissed by those who mistake quiet strength for weakness. Demonstration day arrives with military precision. 0700 hours sharp, the entire base assembles on the main training ground. General Thompson presides from a raised platform, his presence lending gravity to what most expect will be routine exercises. Hawkins presents his theme with PowerPoint efficiency. The evolution of military excellence, from brute force to intelligent application of resources. He's divided the demonstrations into combat teams versus support logistics, brain versus brawn in his simplified worldview. Sarah steps forward when called, still wearing her stained coveralls while others sport freshly pressed uniforms. Her head stays down, shoulders curved inward, as if trying to minimize her presence. The crowd sees what they expect. Hawkins smirks at his perfectly orchestrated lesson in hierarchy. The obstacle course begins with combat teams charging through with aggressive enthusiasm. When logistics personnel take their turn, Sarah moves steadily but without competitive fire. Halfway through, one of Hawkins' soldiers struggles at the 12-foot wall. Without hesitation, Sarah diverts from her path to help, creating a human ladder with her body. The crowd murmurs confusion. She's not trying to win. She ensures everyone finishes, even at the cost of her own time. Rodriguez grips his chair hard enough to leave impressions. He recognizes the Special Forces motto, being lived rather than spoken, leave no one behind, isn't just words to warriors like her. The hand-to-hand demonstration provides Hawkins his moment of anticipated triumph. He insists Sarah participate, voice dripping condescension. Show us what supply clerks learn in basic training. Sarah looks up, like she knows exactly who he is. For the first time all day, Sarah looks up. But her gaze finds General Thompson, not Hawkins. Something passes between them, a communication that requires no words. Sarah rolls up her sleeves with deliberate slowness. The crowd expects to see pale skin, maybe a small tattoo, the unremarkable arms of someone who spends their days moving boxes. Instead, revelation unfolds like a map of war itself. The full-sleeve tattoo emerges in stages. First, the Grey Wolf insignia, intricate and unmistakable to anyone familiar with special operations iconography. Then the dates, coordinates etched in military precision, operations that exist in classified files, locations that officially never saw American presence. But it's the names that stop breaths. Woven between scars from shrapnel and surgery, tiny script covers every available space. KIA dates accompany each name. She carries the dead on her skin, a memorial that travels with her every moment. The patch hadn't hidden shame. It had protected others from the weight of what she bears. General Thompson stands abruptly, his chair scraping against the platform. His voice, trained through decades of command, cracks like a teenager's. Ghost Wolf, Kandahar, you got Morrison out. The name hangs in the air like a revelation. Hawkins' confusion spreads across his face. Morrison? The Medal of Honor Morrison. Thompson's response comes heavy with memory. She carried him 5 miles through enemy territory, while bleeding out herself. Half her unit was down. She got them all out. From the VIP section, a figure rises. Morrison himself. alive because of the woman Hawkins has spent weeks humiliating. His prosthetic leg clicks against the platform as he moves forward, but he moves with purpose. The crowd's understanding shifts like tectonic plates. This isn't just any veteran. This is Ghost Wolf, the legend whispered in special operations circles. Before anyone can fully process this reversal, Captain Williams from Base Intelligence interrupts. The classified file in his hands might as well be an explosive device for the reaction it causes. "Sir, we need to discuss Specialist Mitchell immediately. Recent CIA intelligence indicates a terrorist cell has been planning an attack on Fort Braxton for months. 3 insider threats, personnel who've been turned or infiltrated." Sarah's unusual supply orders suddenly make sense. She's been creating defensive positions, establishing medical caches, preparing the base for an attack while enduring daily mockery. She identified the threats weeks ago but couldn't act without revealing her true purpose. Every humiliation was an intelligence-gathering opportunity. Every moment of supposed weakness was actually reconnaissance. Hawkins stammers the beginning of an apology, but Sarah raises her hand for silence. The gesture carries such authority that he stops mid-syllable. "Would you like that demonstration now, Captain?" Her voice remains quiet, but something fundamental has changed. She moves with economy of motion, positioning herself at the ready. Despite the tremor in her hands, despite the nerve damage that ended her sniper career, muscle memory remains. The disarmament happens so fast that observers process it in retrospect. One moment, Hawkins holds his training weapon. The next, he's on his knees, weapon clattering across the ground. Her hand gentle but firm on his shoulder. "Steady hands are overrated, Captain," she says. "Steady heart is what matters." She helps him stand. No mockery in the gesture. Just a warrior recognizing another's potential for growth. The immediate aftermath unfolds in the base's emergency conference room. General Thompson coordinates response to the terrorist threat, while Sarah's defensive preparations provide the blueprint for protection. He offers her anything within his power. Promotion to her previous rank, commendation medals, a new command position. Her request stops him cold. "Let Captain Hawkins help me coordinate the defense, sir." The room falls silent at the unexpected mercy. Thompson starts to protest, but Sarah continues. "He has good instincts, just misdirected. We need every capable person for what's coming." Hawkins breaks his military bearing completely. Tears track down his face as pieces connect in his mind. "My brother died in Kandahar. Same day you were injured. I never knew." Sarah's expression softens with understanding that runs deeper than sympathy. David Hawkins, Jr., good soldier, better man. The revelation that she knew all along, that his brother's name lives among the others on her arm, destroys his last defenses. She assigns him as her assistant for defense preparations, teaching through example rather than words. Her methods reveal themselves as sophisticated intelligence gathering disguised as submission. Every moment of perceived weakness provided opportunities to observe, categorize, identify threats. Hawkins realizes her trembling hands never prevented her from seeing everything. Together they identify the 3 insider threats she'd been monitoring. Security footage she'd carefully influenced shows their suspicious activities. Supply records she'd maintained reveal patterns of materials that could be used for explosives. Her position in logistics gave her perfect oversight of base vulnerabilities. The simple woman had been running a complex intelligence operation while serving coffee and enduring mockery. The real war stories emerge during long preparation nights. Sarah shares no tales of glory, no boasts of kills confirmed or missions accomplished. Instead, she speaks names like prayers. Each scar on her body has a corresponding soldier who didn't make it home. She explains the psychological block that prevents her from holding weapons. Not physical inability, but mental fracture. Every time she grips a rifle, she sees the faces of those who died while she survived. The tremor isn't nerve damage alone, it's the weight of ghosts. Hawkins begins understanding that strength isn't measured in what someone can do, but in what they choose to endure. His brother's death gains new context through Sarah's eyes. Not a statistic, but a person whose loss she carries literally on her skin. The bigger revelation comes from General Thompson during final preparations. Sarah's medical discharge was cover fiction. She remains active Grey Wolf, the deepest cover operative in the program. Logistics positions across various bases provide perfect surveillance opportunities. Every humiliation, every moment of perceived weakness was calculated intelligence gathering. The program evolved after Kandahar. Instead of direct action, operators like Sarah became hidden sentinels, protecting bases from within while maintaining covers so deep even base commanders didn't know. Hawkins's treatment of her had actually enhanced her cover, making her invisible to the insider threats who dismissed her as thoroughly as he had. What defines true strength? Showing your power or choosing when to reveal it? Comment your thoughts. The question resonates through a base transformed by understanding, where every person reassesses their definitions of warrior and protector. Hawkins volunteers for the dangerous perimeter check as terrorist threats escalate toward critical mass. He employs Sarah's techniques of ego suppression, moving through sectors others overlook because they seem unimportant. Behind the motor pool, in a drainage area considered too obvious for sophisticated threats, he discovers the planted explosive. The device would have killed dozens during morning formation. His prevention of catastrophe comes not from traditional military prowess, but from learned humility. He finally understands his brother's sacrifice through Sarah's perspective, not glory-seeking but quiet service, not recognition but results. The Special Forces mentality he'd resented reveals itself as profound selflessness rather than arrogance. Fort Braxton undergoes cultural transformation in the wake of near disaster. The base implements what becomes known as Grey Wolf principles, though Sarah never claims credit for their development. Strength through service replaces strength through dominance. Mockery transforms into mutual protection. The support staff, previously invisible, become recognized as the foundation enabling all operations. Sarah and Hawkins co-teach integration courses, showing how traditional military excellence combines with special operations adaptability. Former enemies create the strongest unit on base, their partnership demonstrating that growth requires admitting weakness. The young soldiers who followed Hawkins' previous example learn new definitions of strength. They see their captain defer to a supply coordinator's expertise without losing authority. They watch Sarah lead through competence rather than rank. The base becomes a model for military installations nationwide. 6 months pass like seasons changing. The terrorist plot lies in ruins, its perpetrators captured through intelligence Sarah gathered while enduring daily humiliation. Fort Braxton stands stronger than ever, its vulnerabilities addressed, its culture reformed. The ceremony honoring the base's defenders fills the main auditorium with dress uniforms and polished medals. Conspicuously absent is the woman whose foresight prevented catastrophe. Hawkins accepts the commendation for both of them. His dress blues immaculate, his bearing proud but humble. He unfolds a single-page letter, Sarah's words delivered in his voice to the assembled crowd. "Honor lives in what we do when no one watches," he reads, voice steady despite emotional weight. Captain Hawkins found strength by losing pride. He learned that protecting others requires seeing ourselves clearly. The letter continues with philosophical simplicity that cuts deeper than any ceremony speech. "I remain where I'm needed, in the shadows, where threats gather and heroes work without recognition. Your brother would be proud, Derek, not of medals or commendations, but of the man you've become through choosing growth over grievance." The assembly sits in profound silence, understanding that true service often wears no uniform of recognition. A new tradition emerges from the ceremony. Defenders receive wolf patches, but the design differs from special operations standards. These wolves protect sheep rather than hunting prey. The imagery captures Sarah's philosophy of strength. Warriors exist not to dominate but to ensure others sleep safely. Hawkins wears his patch over his heart rather than his shoulder, touching it when facing difficult decisions. The gesture becomes his reminder that strength serves others, not self. Dawn at the loading dock finds familiar rhythms. Sarah checks supply manifests with the same meticulous attention that prevented catastrophe. A new soldier, fresh from basic training, makes a snide comment about her slow movements and the medical patch back in place on her arm. Before she can respond, Hawkins appears from shadows she taught him to use. He quietly reassigns the soldier to latrine duty, not as punishment, but as education. "Everyone serves," he says simply. "Some just don't know it yet." He shares coffee with Sarah in companionable silence, two warriors who found understanding through conflict. Their conversation needs no words. The work continues. The protection never ends. The wolves watch even when the sheep sleep safely. The computer screen glows in the empty office as Sarah completes final reports. Multiple identity files cascade across the monitor before she closes each with practiced efficiency. Sarah Mitchell was always just one name among many. The Grey Wolf program never ended after Kandahar. It evolved, adapted, found new ways to protect America from threats both foreign and domestic. Her next assignment waits in digital folders. New base, new name, new cover identity to maintain. The cycle prepares to begin again, but the lessons taught at Fort Braxton will ripple outward. She saves one file for last, fingers hesitating over the delete key before deciding to preserve it. A photograph of Hawkins at his brother's grave. Finally able to mourn without anger. The last image burns with symbolic weight. Sarah removes the patch to apply medicine to scars that will never fully heal. The full tattoo emerges in the empty office's fluorescent light. Among the many names inked in memorial script, one stands out to those who know where to look. David Hawkins, Jr., written in the same careful hand as all the others. She's worn his name against her skin for 5 years, carrying him as she carries all the fallen, but something has changed. The weight feels different now, shared rather than solitary. His brother knows, understands, and continues the mission in his own way. The preservation of memory becomes active rather than passive, lived in service rather than locked in grief. Hawkins discovers the note in his office 3 days after Sarah's departure, GPS coordinates written in her precise hand, accompanied by a single line of explanation. He's buried here. He wanted mountains. I found them for him. The location his brother requested but the military never located. A place of peace David described in his last letter home. Sarah recovered the information through channels that don't officially exist, marked the spot, honored the wish in secret. For 5 years she's tended this knowledge like a hidden grave, waiting for the right moment to pass it forward. Hawkins will make the journey, find the simple marker she placed, understand that some services transcend official recognition. The split screen of reality shows 2 locations simultaneously. Hawkins stands at his brother's true grave, mountains rising like prayers around him. Sarah stands at a new base, wearing coveralls that read Janet Brown above the pocket. Both touch identical wolf patches, the connection transcending distance. Her new assignment begins with the same invisible service, the same willingness to endure mockery for the sake of protection. The cycle continues, but enriched by what transpired at Fort Braxton. Each base she protects adds layers to her cover, depth to her sacrifice. The shadow of a wolf appears in both frames, protective presence manifested in different forms. One man learning to serve with humility, one woman continuing to guard from shadows. They ask if I'm proud of my service. The voiceover belongs to Sarah but speaks for all who serve without recognition. Pride is luxury, service is duty. The wolf doesn't howl about its hunts, it simply protects the pack, even when the pack bites back. Because the measure of a warrior isn't in the wounds they inflict, but in the wounds they absorb for others. The patch covers scars, but scars tell stories. Stories of those who stand watch in darkness so others can live in light. Stories of strength found not in domination, but in the choice to appear weak for a greater purpose. The simple woman who wore the patch taught an entire base that true power lies in knowing when to reveal it and when to let others believe what they need to believe.